Hey everybody, it's Jamonster back again with Opus Gaming, and I'm here today to bring you guys a Grandis deck profile first of all, but not just any Grandis deck profile. This is a deck that another deck that I brought with me to Nats, and it was actually the deck that I was going to play for the main national tournament. I was doing playtesting the day before, and it really did solidify me in playing Grandis over Hydramon. But that's something we'll talk about a little bit more later in the video, as well as the fact that I didn't get to play in Nats. I had a really unfortunate situation come up, but we'll talk about that, and I'll tell you guys a story about that at the end of the video, just because I want to get like the deck profile out, and there's a lot that I want to talk about. I designed this deck essentially to beat Grandmon, and I do believe if I would have been able to play in the Swiss rounds, that I would have done that very consistently through Swiss. But we'll talk about a lot of my deck choices and some of the things that I think that make my deck kind of a little bit more stand out for the matchup. But at the end of the day, I don't really get to say too much just because I didn't get to play in the actual Nats tournament. But so this is going to be what I'm playing for BT11 for the Grandis deck, just to deal with how much Grandmon we're going to see. So yeah, let's jump into the deck profile right now. All right, onto the deck profile portion. We're just going to jump straight in for this portion. We're going to start off with eggs. We are on 4 Multimon with 2 different arts. I still can't decide which art I like more, but I think I'm starting to lean towards the box topper. But for the actual egg effect, the reason we're playing 4 Multimon is that it's just really consistent. For times when you're missing your Grand Quagmon, you have to go just into Grandis. Having Grandis swinging at 17, kind of naked underneath, is really important because then you'll swing over those 16k Omnimons in like some of your harder matchups, which are like Melga and other blue decks. On top of the fact that against like, one of the things that helps you be really oppressive against Greymon is that if they raise up a level 4 go into a 5 in order to kill your rookie that you have floating on board, in order to like kind of stop you from being able to OTK them, you can then raise up, go from Okulmon into Okulmon X Antibody, suspend their 8k level 5 and swing into it with a 9k level 5 because of this. And that kind of situation kind of goes for every Digimon, every level all the way up, right? When you're just 1k bigger, and that just helps you. Even if you're swinging at security with a rookie, if you swing 3k into 2k and you survive, that's just another attacker for the next turn. So Multimon is actually, I think it's just the best rookie that you can play in Grandis in my opinion, and it's something that we've been playing for a while. So really like the Multimon. Getting into the rookie lineup here, we're actually going to we're going to start off with a couple different cards. We're going to start off with the Palmon and the 2 Kokuomon. For Palmon first, this is really in here to help you with your purple-yellow matchup. It helps you so you survive when your opponent hits a Flame Hell Scythe. I think there's a few different ways that you can play that matchup, but just having jamming in general is really nice. And honestly, a lot of times you don't make it all the way up to Grandis. So if you're on a crucial turn and you just need to make a really impactful play early in the game, having jamming on your Grand Quagmon, who's 11k, just so it doesn't die, because majority of the times I feel like my Grand Quagmon by itself just dies in security. So giving it jamming is actually something that's really valuable. I think looking in the future, going up to 2 jamming Palmon, or possibly even 3, is actually something I could see myself doing. For Kokuomon though, this is something I've been playing for a while. Even with the new Ultimate Cup rules that just got announced, I think that Kokuomon is just something that I think that it's kind of a staple in the deck now. Having the security check +1 just pairs really well, because with the Grand Quagmon combo, since we're not playing Yokomon, it lets us keep our Multimon, which keeps our 1k boost. So you basically treat these as like a package, right? You don't have to Digiburst 2 cards to give security check +1. So you always get to keep this card. I guess you can say more, keep this card +1 in your stack. So you can keep an inheritable that you don't want to Digiburst or something like that. A lot of times it's going to end up being Multimon, but it can be anything. So Kokuomon by itself is actually a really good card, and I like it. Sometimes the 4 cost is just unfortunate, is how I would describe it, but it's never really detrimental. And a lot of times kind of playing towards Kokuomon and playing towards a game where you can just put your opponent from 4 life all the way down to 0 and then just go for game right after is important. Making up the bulk of our rookie count, though, are going to be 4 Tentomon and 4 Kokuomon X Antibody. Obviously, Kokuomon X Antibody goes over the top of Kokuomon, and it's the best searcher that you have in the deck, so I don't think there's all too much to say about this card, other than the fact that it's just really good, and it's the best searcher that you have for the deck. But talking about the Tentomon, I really want to up the number of cards that just search for the next piece, right? So on turns where you're Digivolving and you hit a wall, I want a maximum number of these cards, these rookie cards that I can put on the board and then start swinging at my opponent's security, so I can play one of 2 things. Get to my pieces faster, or put my opponent down at 3 security so I can just OTK them with 1 stack. And playing the 4 of Tentomon just for me has been the best. I do love kind of choking my opponent and stifling down what my opponent can do and things like that. And there's a lot of games where you're using a Hydramon and stuff like that to just play on top of your opponent when they play a memory boost is crazy powerful. But having just consistent search is a lot more powerful for at least for Grandis. That's where I want to be at all the time. So it's gonna be 4 Tentomon, 4 Cocoamon, and then kind of wrapping up what we have for rookies is just 2 Terriermon. This is going to be the last slot that I have for rookies. It's going to be 13 rookies. If I could see myself testing 12 just to fit more room in the deck, but I just consistently see a rookie at 13. I think it's really important to see that. So Hydramon is also just very good because it blocks your opponent from being able to do what they want to do. And I think that this is the best kind of floodgate card that you can play in green, just blocking your opponent on memory gain outside of Tamers. And with this one being the best as opposed to playing like Pomamon or something like that, it performed really, really well. So getting onto our level 4 slots, these are actually pretty simple. It's actually gonna be pretty much, I think this slot and a lot of these slots haven't changed. So it's gonna be 3 Kabuterimon, 4 of Sneemon, and 4 of Weedmon. I think Weedmon is the best level 4 in this deck. This is the one that you always want to see when you're kind of building up a stack. There's not too much to say about it. It extends your play so that if you do Grand Quagamon and you resolve Weedmon, you for sure always go into Grandis after. For the 4 Sneemon, it's a security bomb, and this card is fantastic. It wins you so many games. It gives you the opportunity and the luxury of just digivolving and raising. And if your opponent plays too aggressively and then hits a Sneemon, you don't have to take the turn off to play a rookie on board when you're on a level 5 to guarantee an OTK. You can just, from that point, just raise up and then start going into your OTK and then having the Sneemon finish. That's nice. And it also just stives off your opponent from being able to push in on you. So it's a good defensive tool against decks like Crossheart and stuff like that, especially, where their first turn might be just hard playing a rookie, raising up. If they raise up, swing into a Sneemon, you can suspend that extra rookie before they get a chance to get value out of it. And then Kabuterimon's the same thing. It's going to be a 1-cost Digivolution. It's an Insectoid and searchable. Sneemon is also an Insectoid, so it's just searchable. That's the other thing about it. But being an Insectoid is the next most important searchable trait that we can hit outside of just being a green card. So since this card obviously fulfills both, we're playing 3 Kabuterimon. Playing a level of 11 level 4s feels very consistent to me. I've seen a couple of the other decks that did really well play less than 11 level 4s, and I might test that out in the future, but it kind of just depends. You kind of live by the sword, die by the sword with this deck anyway, and I don't want to be waiting for too long to get into my top end. So here we are into our level 5s. We're going to have the Cocoamon, or the Okuamon package. So we're going to have the regular and the X antibody. At this point, since we're talking about like a Nats deck profile, there's not too much to say about these. A lot of people know how this works. Your opponent loses memory, doesn't gain memory. So cards like Terriermon have no effect against this. So it's really nice. And this is where some of those combos just come up, because this card is 8K with a Motimon, like we were talking about earlier. But when you Digivolve this on top of this, you suspend your opponent's 1 stack, and then you can attack into it, piercing with 9K. They're at 4 security, and then from there, you can just kind of combo off. So these cards are part of what changed the game for Grand Quagamon and kind of put you in a space where you can really play. And they're kind of forever goated. I think that looking at with that Ultimate Cup, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, with the rules and stuff like that, and that little mini ban list announced earlier today, I think that these cards are the cards that matter. Even though that this card is absolutely cracked, you can just play one of this and just play 3 of the other Grand Quagamon that just inherently have security check +1, and you still have a very aggressive push the game state style deck, even though you don't have like a perfect OTK every time. So talking about the perfect OTK though, we have the Grand Quagamon. We'll talk about this card first. You just Digiburst 2 cards to give it security check +1. So if you get rid of 4 cards, it's 2 checks, and then you Digivolve for 1 into this Grandis Quagamon, and this card suspends one of your opponent's Digimon and attacks on suspends if it has Grand Quagamon underneath it, so you can clear 6 of your opponent's security. So I noticed a lot of times against like Yellow and Mastemon and stuff like that, what they'll do is they'll try to go up to like 7 security, essentially. And when they do that, or not 7 security, I'm sorry, 6, because they start off at 5, so they try to play a Magna Angemon really early, and it just doesn't matter. You force them into a situation where they have to play, oh, sorry, I'm trying to get this like perfect, there we go. You force them into a situation where they have to play like multiple recovery cards early on to have any type of effect, and if they do, it's fine, because you're on so much memory. So you can get to the combo so much earlier. Grandis Quagamon is just like a really important part of the combo, and this is the other card that kind of changed the landscape for green OTK when this card came out. The next piece, though, I've struggled a lot against kind of pseudo security decks, and I think this deck does in general, so that's why I'm playing one Omnimon Merciful mode. This card is fantastic against not only Mastemon, but just security control in general. Against purple decks in general, you can just take away their early graveyard that they took a long time to set up, and that's just a play all in general. Sometimes I'll just go up my line, and I'll stop at the Grand Quagamon, raise this one up, and just Digivolve into Merciful mode. I'll take away their most important piece that they have on their board, but on top of doing that, I also get rid of their entire trash, and that's so important because now they can't use like Lucamon Chaos mode and stuff like that they have in their drop. So Merciful mode is actually pretty cracked. It is a card that I would consider dropping, just possibly for more space. It just really depends on how you feel, I think, in the Mastemon matchup in general. For Tamers, I have one Davis, one Mimi. I think this is really self-explanatory. You have two options with Black Wargreymon running around. You can either go low Tamers or high Tamers. Either play enough Tamers where they don't have enough removal to remove all your Tamers all the time, or play a low enough Tamer count where you don't rely just on your Tamers to get there. And I went with the don't rely just on your Tamers to get there. So we have Davis that it's nice to play early and mid game. To get you pieces, just like I was saying earlier, every card that you play gets you next piece, right? So if you're on level 4 and you're missing a 5, you have to pass turn, you play Davis, try to find that 5, right? Same thing with like hard playing a Tentomon. You're on a 4, you're missing a 5, you hard play the Tentomon to try to speed up the process of getting to a 5. Same thing with Kokuamon. So that's just the general reason that we're on Davis. Spoiler, we're not playing any hybrids in this list just because space was so tight. I feel like with the hybrid, you can go hybrid for game in a lot of scenarios, and I think that it definitely can win you some games that you weren't going to win otherwise. But I felt like with where I was going with my tamer ratio and things like that, I wouldn't play a hybrid with this tamer ratio. The lowest tamer count I would play is 2 of the same color tamer to the same color hybrid. So that's where I would like to go. Mimi is in here for the Grandis matchup. I thought the Grandis mirror this was built to play in Nats, right? So I think that preparing for the Grandis mirror in general was really important, just because people were going to be on that deck like crazy. So the idea is that you raise up, or you go first in raising, right? You play Mimi as your card that cinches you enough memory to go into your Grand Quagamon and go into your combo. And then when you raise up your Grandis, you go through all their security checks, you tap Mimi and put something in raising so you can raise up an attack for game the next turn, even though your opponent's goal is just going to be raise up, clear your Grandis, and leave you with nothing. That way you just always have something, and that's just kind of how it went in my mind. I only played it at 1 because I only had space for 1. But that's the reason for the Tamer lineup. And I think it was fine. It was fine. Mimi helps you in random matchups, like even the Mastemon matchup, since it's so control-based, Mimi helps with those longer games. So I really did like that about her. Next up, for Memory Boost, this is kind of where we're not relying just on the Memory Tamer. We do have Memory Boost to help us get there. A lot of people omitted playing memory blocking cards. So I think it was important to be able to hit this. This is something that one of my teammates, Quan, really put us on and really like preached to us, that Memory Boost is a powerful card right now with the way that people are building their decks. And I do agree with him. I think that I was toggling between 3 and 4 of this card for a long time, but I am happy that I ended on 4. So thanks to Quan, I was able to do that. Yeah, 4 Memory Boost is a very powerful number to be on. If you didn't play 4, I wouldn't like yell at you or anything like that. I wouldn't be too mad about it, but I liked playing 4 because it's very consistent. 1X Antibody. This is for when you don't see Grand Quagamon. It only feels dead when you have a perfect hand, but if you have a perfect hand already, every other card in your hand is already an extra card. Nothing else matters, so it's whatever. But this turns your Grandis into something that is a viable swinger. And I actually think that was pretty important for the event in general. So we were playing 1 of it to see it. And then right after that, the last card that we have in the deck, and actually the card I'm going to talk about the most important card in the deck, is High Mega Blaster. This card is, I think, the biggest game changer and why this deck can't lose to Black Wargreymon. With High Mega Blaster, just breaking it down, right? Black Wargreymon's biggest thing, you have the general advantage against them because they can't build a stack or build control on the board. They can be very aggressive because you don't have very many security bombs, but they can't do too much because at the end of the day, no matter which level 6 you go into, you can always raise up and clear out their card and clear out their body. and that just doesn't change. So what they normally do is go into Omnimon X Antibody and try to wall you off of being able to attack with a card that can block. I think it's usually around 4 attacks, right? So just kind of simplifying the thing is that you raise up your Grandis, they have an Omnimon X, and normally once Omnimon X comes onto the board, you just lose. There's not a way to get around it. There truly isn't. You can use as much removal as you want, but if they have protection, then you're just SOL, right? If they can just keep, if they have like an Altarius mode or the OG level 4, you can't rely on things like what is it, Mega Blaster, I think is the name, or no, that's this card. The one that Mega something, but the one that spins it back to hand, or even the other card that spins it to the bottom of the deck. If they can survive that, those cards cost too much to play multiple of them in the same turn, and even your Omnimon Merciful mode, you can't rely on this to be able to pop it. So what you can do is, if they can negate 4 of your attacks, you can freeze the card with High Mega Blaster. It can't unsuspend, which will make it so it can't clear your Grandis, and then your Grandis can attack into it again on the next turn. There's more applications than just that. Even in like the control matchup, if you don't see your Mimi against Grandis and they raise up, they commit first, if you don't have piercing on your stack, but you need to clear their security so you can go for game the next game, or the next turn, you can clear their stack with your Grandis without piercing, and then just lock down their level 6, and so it can't unsuspend and then attack into yours. This card is crazy. There's other ways to use it as well. There's like, if your opponent has a wide board of retaliation blockers, and you can put them under your level 5 Okumon effect to lose a memory every time they suspend. If you can suspend 2 of them with your normal stack, using this card, you can, for 1 memory, you can suspend an additional 2 cards, which is a total of 4 blockers, and it puts your opponent in the position where they have to play 5 retaliation blockers to fully stop your full combo. And that's just like extremely hard. Playing 3 to 4 is actually not that bad, because at the end of the day, to get that 3rd and 4th suspension with Grandis, you have to attack first. But with this card, it just puts you in a completely different league of aggressive stances that you can take. There are scenarios where if you're just behind it on your opponent and your opponent's just running away with the game, and you just need to slow the game down so that you can Digivolve, it's just like, if you're on 3, High Mega Blaster, lock down their main attacker, Digivolve into your level 4, into your level 5 for 3, pass 3 onto your opponent. Now you're in a position where they can't attack with their main card. You're on level 5 in raising, and if they just can't finish the game, now you can win. The way that this card works, it suspends 2 of your opponent's cards that are less DP than an Insectoid that you have. So when you're at 17k with Grandis because of Motimon, that suspends any card in the game. There's not a card that can stay unsuspended against that. On top of the fact that the last part of the effect is that it makes it so that one of your opponent's cards can't unsuspend during their unsuspend phase. So it's crazy. I think that High Mega Blaster needs to be I think it's a staple. I think it's a standard part of what you want to do with your deck. I've seen so many people run things like Digimon and stuff like that to lock your opponent's Omnimon X Antibody, and this card does that in Archetype just so much better. So you don't really miss out, and then you get a wider variety of cards that you can use, because you don't have to go into Digimon to lock out multiple retaliation blockers. You just lock everything out by suspending it. So that's going to wrap up the green deck profile portion of the video. As far as matchups and stuff like that, I really only lost with this deck against my like horrible matchups, which is like Blue Melga, Security Control, but everything else I was able to take mostly wins against. I lost against a blue hybrid player in the team event, which was really unfortunate, but it just kind of is what it is. And like, there's one other deck that I lost to. I only lost 2 games in Team Wars. The other deck was actually Red Purple Imperial. Shout out to that player. He was a really good player, and I made a really big mistake of attacking to Retaliation. And that was kind of the nerves getting to me. The next part of the video is going to be the story of how I missed Nats. But yeah, that's going to be the end of the deck profile and everything like that. We're going to move on to the next portion of the video, but this is going to be the screen capable version. So if you want to shoot a screenshot, leave a comment down below if you have any questions about like any of my choices. All right, and that's gonna be the deck profile, you guys. Before I do, I'm not really gonna do any more of a deep dive. I think I talked about all the different card choices and things like that. And I think the matchups are pretty known for Grandis at this point, so there's not too much to talk about it in the meta. But we are gonna talk about the story of why I didn't get to go playing Nats now. Essentially what happened, I was very excited to play Nats. I was rearing to go. So the day before, there was like pre-registration that you could do for Nats to get to like your playmat and all your things, right? All your participation. as well as side events. So waited in a very long line with all my friends and things like that. We got pre-reg and everything like that. So they let us kind of play test and play side events in the actual venue for a little while, right? So we got in there early enough. I was running games with my friends. Some of my friends got into side events, so we were just kind of running around, watching my friends play their like last chance qualifiers. One of my friends won their last chance qualifier, which was super crazy. By the way, if you haven't put it together yet, this is also just gonna be a story about my general experience at Nats. But a couple of my friends, or one of my friends made it in. Super excited for him. He trained very hard for that, so it was amazing to see him like get that dub and like just the energy that he brought with it. And then that also brought energy to all of us because like we were sitting there just kind of waiting for everything to pop off and everything to go. But like from the playtesting sessions that were going so perfectly for all of us that were playtesting hard, man, we were just rearing to go competitively, and like we were just wanted like just put me in, coach. Like we just wanted to get in there. So everything was going well. We playtested for a long time, and then the venue closed, so we went and hung out afterwards. We got like dinner and things like that. After dinner, we all kind of went to hang out at one hotel. I think we did a little bit of playtesting as well, but like whatever, just kind of talking about the game, right? It was time for me to go home at this point, and this is kind of the first big issue, right? So all of us were staying at different places. I was staying in an Airbnb. A handful of my friends were staying at one hotel, and then a handful of my other friends were staying, or other teammates and stuff were staying at another hotel. But my two groups of friends were staying at hotels that were a walk away from the convention. My Airbnb was probably about 10 to, or like 10, not 15 minutes. It was 10 minutes away from the convention center. And I had only done the trip one time in an Uber, so I wasn't very familiar with the area at all, right? So that was kind of unfortunate with the way the scenario broke out. But I was on my Uber on my way back to the Airbnb from my friend's hotel, finishing up, just really excited, had all my stuff. Deck testing was going well, and we were just talking about just kind of like concepts and like talking about some of like what we thought was going to happen the next day. It's raining really, really hard at this time, and it's raining really, really hard during the entire Natsi's tournament. So that was one thing that we had to get through, but with the rain came just like so much water. So when I was getting out of my Uber, essentially, I had my phone in my lap like an idiot, and I just wasn't really paying attention. I was getting all my stuff together, and I got out my Uber, and my phone lapped out onto the ground, essentially. It slid into like, not into the gutters, but into like one of the, just like the corner of the sidewalk or whatever. And there was a huge just dip of water where my phone just happened to slide. I reached down, pulled my phone up and everything like that. It's really gross. Not my phone wasn't really gross, but the just idea of sitting water in the street is very gross. Pull my phone out, dry it off, but my phone is working perfectly fine. So I get upstairs, get into my Airbnb, dry everything off. Phone is working fine. There's no issues at all. I leave it out and I dry it off with a towel. So I leave it like on top of the towel so it can just kind of absorb all the moisture out, and I left it wrapped up. And I went to go take a shower. I plugged my phone in right before I got in the shower just because I need to start getting ready for Nats the next day. Getting ready for Nats, everything, whatever, get out the shower, and I go onto my phone and message to my friends because we have breakfast at 8 a.m. the next morning. And my phone isn't charging. Not a big deal because I was on enough percentage to like whatever, go to sleep for the night, wake up, do whatever, and get to the event the next day and charge my phone at the event. But I wanted to know what was going on. So I do a quick Google search, and my quick Google search tells me to like turn my phone off, right, and leave it just so that air can run through it, so that nothing blocking it, and just like leave it in a good pathway of air. And that's what I do, and to leave it turned off for as long as possible. And that's exactly what I do. It's like 1 a.m. at this point, so it's not like I can stay up for an hour and check on my phone in an hour or anything like that. So I just go to sleep for the night, right? I have to be up really, really early the next morning. So I get up probably at like 5 a.m., so 4 hours later, and I turn on my phone, and this is where things just go bad. When I turn on my phone, my screen is locked. When I say my screen is locked, there's absolutely nothing I can do to get a response out of my screen, no matter how many times I reset my phone from the hard reset, no many times I like try to flip it on, flip it off, and everything like that. Completely unresponsive and uninteractable, which is really bad because, like I said, I'm staying in an Airbnb. So from my friend's perspective, absolutely no way to contact me, as well as we had plans and things like that. We're in a city that's not our hometown. And then from my perspective, obviously I need my Ubers and stuff like that to get back and forth, because I'm willing to walk. That's no problem for me. I'll walk for like miles, but I just need to know where I'm going. So I'm in a place that I don't know too well. I can't get Ubers, and then also my ticket and things like that for my plane ride home is on there. And from the point that my phone is broken, it's Saturday. I have the Saturday tournament, Sunday tournament, and I fly out Monday morning at like 7 a.m. No time for any like wish-washy, just no time for anything at that point. So when my phone is locked, right, my options are two things. just walk someplace, get a taxi from any place in the surrounding area to the convention center, to the breakfast place that we had planned for the breakfast time, get breakfast with my friends, and then get together with a group of my friends and try to figure it out as a group. Or guarantee that I can for sure get my phone fixed and just like go to a Verizon store or something and just guarantee that I get my phone fixed. So in the moment, there was a lot of emotions flying. I was pretty like upset. I was pretty anxious as well. My anxiety was just on 10. And I just decided, instead of going and meeting up with my friends, to just go and make sure that I get my phone fixed, because I don't know what's going on with my phone. I'm not a tech expert, so I can't say if it's like really bad damage or just something that just needs, you know, a little bit of work and it's easy to fix, right? And with that not knowing, I just went with the surefire option. So that led to me walking to the surrounding areas, and this is like 8 a.m., right? So if I can get things done, right? If I can get someplace by 9 a.m. and they're open at 9 a.m. and it's like an 45-minute-ish or 30-minute-ish ordeal, I can still get an Uber from the place I was to the events, to the convention center, and play Nats. So that's kind of the goal. Man, when I was out walking around, that was just the biggest issue. The group of people that was out at that time were just like, were just a very diverse group of people, and it made it so that the people that were working in the different places, like a 7-Eleven, a gas station, a store that's open at the time, not willing to talk to you. They didn't want, and I understand that, right? They didn't want to pull their phones out to help me try to find, because I had no access to internet at all. No able way to like figure out where I was and where I need to go. What I needed to do was find I broke it down to I just needed a Verizon store. I didn't need people to look up a taxi store for me, or not a taxi store, a taxi for me, or look up a iPhone repair store or anything like that, because it was going to be too, people just weren't willing to help you that much, essentially, which is totally fine, and I totally get that. It was kind of a sketchy situation, right? But I'm from out of town, so I don't have as many resources in this situation. Anyway, long story short, I go around to a lot of places, try to talk to a lot of people, get blown off a lot, but then one lady helps me by giving me the address to 3 different Verizon stores, which is all I needed. There was a language barrier, so we couldn't communicate, but I thanked her a lot. She was the only person to help me, and she was, you know, she got that I was thanking her and stuff, so I left. When I left there's a guy smoking a cigarette at the corner of the street, waiting for like a bus or something like that. Talked to him really quick, and he helped me find walking directions to where I need to go, which just happened to be like 3 miles away. It was probably around like 9:30, or no, I'm sorry, it was probably around like I guess it was probably 8:30 or 9 at this point, maybe like 8:30. But it was really, really running thin. I had missed my opportunity to meet up with my friends at the restaurant. And they were calling me. I could tell that they're calling me because my phone was going off and things like that. And I can see the icons for all the notifications that were going off. So all of my friends were like calling me. I could see the Facebook messages going off, but I couldn't respond. So I get walking directions. It's like 3 miles away. Long story short, from this point, I walk very far in the rain with a little bit of help from like this lady at like a shop that I stopped at the way there. But I eventually get my phone repaired, get to the Verizon store and everything like that. It's a long story of how all that worked. But at this point, it's like 1 or 2 o'clock, right? Side events for the event start at 3. And I just couldn't let it go that I came all this way to play out and play for prizes, and I haven't gotten that chance yet. So I got all my shit together, went to the venue, played in as many side events and things like that as I could. And like, that's the biggest thing about my experience, is that thankfully there was so many events and side events to participate in. There was like 3v3s, win-a-boxes, win-a-mats, and all that different types of stuff. And I got to play in it all. It was really, really nice, because like I missed my opportunity to play in the event that I went there for, which is really, really unfortunate. It was from like outlying things that happened, right? There's nothing that anybody could have done to really change those things. But at least at the end of the day, I'm really thankful that I got to go there. I still got to game with my friends. I still got to be in the environment. I still got to support all my friends. All my friends that ended up going a little bit farther or were grinding it out all the way, I still got to be a beacon of like positive energy for them and things like that. And don't get me wrong, it isn't lost how shitty and how stupid it is that it cost me so much money and so much time to go to this event, and like I didn't get to compete in the event at all. Trust me, that is not lost on me at all. But I just really tried to bounce back and have a positive attitude, because at that point there wasn't anything I could do to change it. So getting to the venue, playing in all the different side events and things like that, grinding it out and playing my deck to the best that I could was all I could ask for. My biggest thing was I just wanted to play a really hard event and like play to the best of my abilities, and I got to do that in both the 3v3s. Even though we didn't do too good in the 3v3s, it ended up I did pretty good in all my different games and things. I think altogether over all my matches, I lost 2 games in the 3v3s, which is cool. We can't win them all. But altogether, like, thankful for those, thankful for all the different events because I got to play. And if I wasn't able to play, I think how sad the story would have been like times 10 if I just wasn't able to grind it out. So my experience, thankfully, thanks to Bandai, was really, really, really positive outside of the one thing. The side events were crazy. I really hope that they make this a standard for Nats because it just made it so much more fun. I definitely think that I'll be going to Nats again next year just because this year was my year. I was really, really, really excited to play. I was really excited to grind it out, and I was really excited to like perform, but I didn't really get that opportunity, which is cool. Last year I played Gabumon, and I really didn't like that deck, so I didn't really feel like I really got to compete in the way I wanted to get to compete. So next year I'm gonna have to. At the end of the day, I've been kind of like out of luck for the past couple of Nats, but I'm gonna play again next year. I hope Bandai brings back all the events and things like they did this past year to next year's event. But I mean, they did a fantastic job. I had so much fun at the end of the day. It was really cool seeing all the different homies and things like that, and then coming all the way from Minnesota, Minneapolis to go to LA to kick it with like the homies and things like that made it out there. It was a really fun event. I had a ton of fun experiences. So that's really gonna wrap it up. That's what I got to experience for Nats, and that's why I didn't get to play in the main event. And it's pretty tragic, but it is what it is. Happy I got to play. Happy I got to do what I could do, and I'm definitely gonna be going back again next year. So at the end of this, that's gonna wrap up the video. I'm not really gonna go back too much more into the deck like we talked about before. But as you guys know, we're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. Drop a sub down below, leave a like, leave a comment, help us push this content out. I'd really appreciate it. But at the end of the day, this is gonna be Jamonster with Opus Gaming, and I'm out. Take care, guys. Peace.